All right, so this is about workers' compensation in Florida. First of all, I'm an attorney in Florida, California mediator, arbitrator, professor. If you need an attorney, themiamishark.com. If we can't handle it, we'll find someone to handle it for you, assuming you have a case. We charge, attorneys charge. Attorneys do this to make money, so don't expect not to pay. There is such thing as contingency, and there is such thing as pro bono. That's case specific, obviously. We give free consultations to determine if that's needed or not. So this video is not legal advice. It doesn't make me your attorney. You don't have an attorney unless you have a contract with that attorney that you both signed. That's the only time that an attorney-client relationship is permitted. There's exceptions to every rule, of course, but that being said, this is not legal advice and it doesn't apply to your specific case. Your specific case is different from everybody else's. So obviously you need to talk to an attorney to determine the specifics for your case. I'm just here to give you some information in general about what goes on for workers' comp. I do videos on Kajabi. You can look at it if you need it. I'm an employment lawyer, breach of contract, business, defamation, whistleblower, discrimination, FMLA, landlord, tenant, workers' comp lawyer. And I do all those areas of law, and I know people to do everything else. I don't give free advice. Obviously, I charge for legal advice, but I do give free consultations to determine if you need a lawyer. If you need a lawyer, then you got to find one that you're going to pay, either by contingency or cash or whatever it may be. All right, workers' compensation in Florida is covered by Chapter 44 of the Florida Statutes. There are over 85,000 words in this chapter. Workers' comp isn't so simple as you might think. It's not a matter of, I got hurt on the job, so I'm going to get something. There's no pain and suffering in workers' compensation. It's very complicated. It's for injuries on the job that are related to the job. It's not for pre-existing injuries that you had before that you might aggravate on the job for a day or two. And then the job doesn't buy your entire injury if you had a pre-existing injury and then you re-injure it on the job. There's complicated legal theories as to what you may or may not be owed and whether you can or cannot get temporary disability or permanent disability. Your employer cannot fire you because you had a workers' compensation injury. A lot of employers will find out you got injured and they'll fire you immediately, or they'll try to fire you last week, or they'll try to get out of it because they don't have workers' comp coverage, or they don't want their workers' comp coverage to go up, or they didn't report you as an employee for workers' compensation. Not having workers' compensation coverage can be considered a felony by an employer in the state of Florida. Huge penalties, but they try to do these things. They try to trick you, okay? That being said, generally speaking, there's exceptions for all different kinds of employers, like agriculture employers. But if your employer has more than 4 employees that are W-2 employees and independent contractors, they have to carry workers' comp insurance. If they're a construction company and they have 1 employee, they have to carry workers' compensation insurance. You need to report all injuries in writing immediately. Emails, text messages to supervisors and human resources. There is a 30-day rule, but you should report it immediately within 24 hours, okay? There's general and special employers. There's contractors and subcontractors. You got to know who your employer is. Who writes you that check? What's the name on that check? That's who you're going to report this to, because payroll and workers' comp are tied. And so whoever's paying you, that's the person that you need to report the injury to. And then you have to fill out a claim form. If they don't give you a claim form, which they're required to do immediately when you report a work injury, they got to give it to you at least within 24 hours. If they don't, that's a problem, right? But those claim forms are free online. You can download it, fill it out, make a copy, scan it, email it to your employer, take a picture of it, send it to your employer. Make sure your employer's on notice. Why? Because your employer with workers' compensation coverage has medical control. This is part of the whole workers' compensation bargain. Employees don't have to sue in civil court anymore. Employees get special workers' compensation rules so that when they're injured, they can get treatment, they can get paid. There is a waiting period to get paid temporary disability. You might be off work for a week without getting paid at all, but if you're off for a lot longer, then they'll pay you. Special rules. You need to talk to an attorney about your specific situation to determine what the rules are and which rules apply to you and how. But that being said, fill out the claim form. Then it goes to their insurance carrier. It goes to their third-party adjusting company. They send you to a doctor. The doctor decides, can you go back to work? Are there going to be work restrictions? They don't have to give you work restrictions. If they have work restrictions or modified duties available, they'll give it to you. If not, they don't have to. And then after a certain period of time, you can get temporary disability until they find those modified duties for you. Of course, insurance companies want employers to provide modified duties so they don't have to pay. temporary disability. It's a whole complicated situation. Get copies of everything. Every time you go to a doctor, get a copy of the report. When you get an attorney, they're going to want to see everything. What happens with these work comp doctors? Their job, they work for the insurance company, they work for the employer. The law allows this. And they try to get you back to work as fast as possible. You might think you're more injured than they say you are. They also don't like to write everything down in their reports. Make sure they write everything down in their reports. And that being said, call a lawyer right away. It's very important. And if they fire you because you filed a workers' compensation case, or they demote you, or they cut your pay, or they start treating you poorly, there's a civil case that's called workers' compensation retaliation, section 440.405, 205. And that's a case that goes in civil court, not workers' compensation court. If you want to read up about workers' compensation, go ahead and Google Florida OJCC, and then you'll see how everything works. It's complicated. You need a lawyer, so call a lawyer. And thank you for listening.